My wife laughed at my tears the day her betrayal shattered me. It was Carmen's birthday. I had spent the night before baking her favorite lemon tart from scratch, placing rose petals in her bath, and rehearsing my toast 10 times in the mirror. At the restaurant, under warm candlelight and soft violin music, I stood and raised my glass. To the woman who taught me how to love. My voice cracked near the end. And Carmen, God, she didn't even try to hide it. Her smirk widened, and she glanced at her phone mid-toast. A message popped up. The screen lit up just enough for me to read one name, Robert. When I sat down, she leaned over and whispered through a wine-glossed smile. "You're so dramatic, Michael. It's just dinner. No need to get emotional." That was the moment I knew. She didn't see me as a man, just a sentimental weakling clinging to a fantasy. Her fingers traced the rim of her wineglass while her mind drifted to someone else. Probably to him, to Robert. 2 hours later, I walked into our shared apartment and saw the notification blinking on her iPad, a hotel booking confirmation, 2 guests, same night, same city, same damn hotel chain I once surprised her with during our anniversary. My knees buckled before my pride did. I sat on the cold kitchen tiles, trying to piece together every word she ever said. Every time she said, "You're too sensitive," or "You always overthink," I thought she meant it out of concern. Now I realized she said it to silence me. When she walked in, heels clicking, perfume trailing, lips redder than usual, I didn't say a word, but my tears did. She stopped, blinked, and then burst out laughing. "Oh my God, Michael, are you actually crying?" Her voice was sharp, mocking. "This is what I'm talking about. You cry over everything. No wonder I couldn't stay faithful. Look at you." She threw her clutch on the couch and went straight to the fridge. Like nothing had happened. Like my pain was background noise she could mute at will. That night, I packed my things, not loudly, quietly, the way love dies when no one's watching. I left behind the house, the memories, the lemon tart in the fridge, even the apology letter I wrote for raising my voice during our last fight. Because I realized something. I had been apologizing for bleeding when she was the one holding the knife. Months passed. I started therapy. I picked up running. I stopped asking people to love me back. But fate has a way of leading you to the people who actually see you. One rainy afternoon, I received a message. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry." It was from Marie. Carmen's childhood friend, the girl who once cried during Pixar films and stood quietly beside Carmen on our wedding day. The one whose eyes followed me when no one else did. The one who noticed, always. We met for coffee. 1 coffee turned into 5. Conversations turned into healing. Laughter turned into peace. And healing turned into love. Marie never tried to fix me. She simply sat in the ruins with me and said, "You don't have to pretend you're okay." The day I proposed to her, she whispered, "You know she's going to hate this, right?" I smiled. She doesn't get to be the main character anymore. Now here I am, standing in a quiet church with Marie beside me, in a simple white dress that somehow outshines any luxury Carmen ever wore. Our vows are written, but unsaid. The door opens, late, of course she'd be late. Carmen walks in, wearing black, as if she's attending a funeral. Maybe she is. She takes one look at Marie in white and me in tailored navy and realizes this time, the story doesn't end with me broken on the kitchen floor. It ends with her watching the man she mocked take vows with the only woman who ever mourned his tears. My name is Michael Harrington, and for most of my adult life, I believed that being a good man, loyal, soft-spoken, and emotionally available, would be enough to be loved. I believed if I gave everything I had to someone, they'd never let it go to waste. But people don't fall in love with kindness, not always. Sometimes they fall in love with the thrill of breaking it. I met Carmen in college. She was a communications major with a laugh loud enough to turn heads and a confidence that walked into rooms before she did. She was magnetic. Everyone wanted to be near her, orbit around her. I was no different. I fell fast, the way quiet boys often do for loud women, like moth to flame, knowing I'd burn but drawn anyway. I was the guy who fixed Carmen's printer at 3 a.m. the night before her final, the one who stood in the rain outside her ex's apartment because she said she needed one last look. I carried her books, her emotions, her expectations. I wore her moods like jackets, putting them on and taking them off depending on what she needed. She liked the way I listened, said it made her feel seen, but over time, it wasn't enough for her to be seen. She needed to be adored, worshipped, and I was willing to do it. By the time we graduated, we were living together in a small downtown apartment with chipped paint and dreams still unpacked. I worked as a junior graphic designer in a cramped office, while she took up a corporate public relations job that had her in and out of hotels, meetings, and mixers. The distance didn't bother me at first. I trusted her, or maybe I just refused to see what was in front of me. People often said we were opposites. Carmen was social, ambitious, radiant. I was introspective, steady, predictable, but she made me feel like the quiet parts of me were worth loving, at least in the beginning. The cracks began subtly. Carmen would come home later than usual and claim her phone died. She'd start laughing at things I didn't say. One time, I gave her a handmade photo album on our anniversary, and she barely glanced at it before setting it down. "Babe, this is sweet," she said, already looking at her phone. "But we're not 80, who still makes photo albums?" I laughed it off, the way I always did. I told myself not everyone showed love the same way. But late at night, I'd find myself awake in bed, watching her scroll through Instagram under the covers, wondering who she was smiling at. One afternoon, during a family BBQ, Carmen introduced me to someone I never expected to see again, Robert Langley, her high school sweetheart. Tall, charming, and sharp with his words, the kind of man who knows how to make women laugh without saying anything funny. He looked me up and down like he was scanning for cracks in armor, then said, "So you're the lucky guy, huh?" Carmen laughed and nudged his arm. "Be nice, Michael's my husband, not my bodyguard." I remember how tightly she gripped my hand that day, possessive, like I was an object on display, not a person with feelings. But Robert's smile said everything I needed to know, that whatever they had in the past, it hadn't stayed in the past. Still, I didn't say anything. I swallowed my suspicions and called it insecurity. Because Carmen never cheated, at least, not where I could see it. Enter Marie Leclerc. If Carmen was fired, Marie was the calm that follows it. They had been friends since childhood, neighbors growing up in the suburbs, braiding each other's hair and trading secrets between sleepovers. Marie had always been around, quiet, kind, with eyes that carried more questions than answers. Where Carmen filled a room with noise, Marie softened it. I remember the first time I truly noticed her. It was the night of my wedding to Carmen. I was in the groom's suite, nerves rattling my hands as I tried to fix my cufflinks. Marie walked in holding a pair of polished silver ones. "These are Robert's," she said softly. "But I figured they'd match your suit better." I thanked her, and she helped me fix them without saying much else. But just before leaving, she looked at me with a kind of sadness that didn't belong at weddings and said, "If you ever feel like no one's listening, I am." At the time, I thought she was just being polite, but those words would echo years later when everything fell apart. The beginning of the end came 6 months before the divorce. Carmen stopped looking at me during arguments. Instead, she'd talk to walls, the mirror, even her reflection in a wine glass, anyone but me. Her voice grew sharp, her laughter turned cruel, and the only time she touched me was when she needed something. I tried. God, I tried. I planned surprise dates, left notes in her bag, cooked her favorite meals even when work had drained me dry, and every night, I waited up hoping she'd come home smiling. She never did. One night, after yet another silent dinner, I asked, "Are you happy?" She blinked slowly and said, "Happy's such a basic word." I didn't press her, because I knew the answer already. The night she lagged. Head at my tears wasn't the worst part. The worst part came after, the stillness. The way life kept moving around me while mine paused. My friends told me to move on, my mother begged me to fight for my marriage, but something inside me had already broken. Marie found me a week after the separation. I was at the same coffee shop where Carmen and I used to spend Sunday mornings. She walked in, ordered her chamomile tea, and spotted me. Instead of ignoring the awkwardness, she sat down without asking. "You look like you're still holding your breath," she said. I nodded. Marie didn't offer advice. She didn't say Carmen was trash. She just listened. When I told her about the night Carmen mocked my tears, she didn't flinch. She just whispered, "That says everything about her, and nothing about you." Over the months, we spoke more, sometimes about heartbreak, other times about music, books, childhood fears. Marie had this way of making pain feel less lonely. With her, I didn't have to be strong, I could just exist. One evening, while walking home, she asked, "Do you ever regret loving Carmen?" I thought for a long time before answering. No, I regret letting her convince me I was weak for feeling. Marie smiled. Then you didn't lose yourself, you just outgrew her cruelty. We stood outside her apartment, the wind blowing softly between us. She reached out, her fingers brushing mine, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch. I let someone reach me. And now, as I stand beside her on the most important day of my life, I realize something Carmen never understood. Tears aren't a weakness. They're the proof that love was real, that it existed, that it meant something. And someone like Marie, she never laughed at them. She held them. The first crack didn't echo, it whispered. I remember the exact moment Carmen began slipping away. We were seated in the living room on a Sunday evening. She was scrolling through her phone, legs crossed on the armrest, a glass of rosé dangling from her fingers. I had just brought her tea, chamomile, the one she used to like before she switched to wine every evening. "You're quiet today," I said, setting the cup down on the coffee table. Carmen didn't look up. "You don't have to narrate everything, Michael." I froze mid-step. "I was just trying to talk." "Yeah, well, not everything needs talking," she muttered, her eyes still fixed on her phone. "Jesus, you're exhausting sometimes." It wasn't the words, it was the way she said them, like she was chewing on something bitter, like love had become an obligation. I told myself it was stressful, work, the season, her new job had her flying in and out, hosting executives, sitting on panels. Maybe she was overwhelmed. I tried to be patient. After all, we'd promised forever, and forever wasn't built on convenience, but then came the business trip that wasn't. 3 days, out of state, a hotel suite Carmen claimed was sponsored by her firm. She packed light, wore perfume she hadn't worn in months, and left without letting me drive her to the airport. "I'll Uber," she said. "Stop being clingy." That word, clingy, stung more than it should have. On the second night of her trip, I received a call from an unknown number. A man's voice came through, annoyed and clipped. "Hey man, your wife's phone was in our cab, just letting you know." My throat dried instantly. "Our?" "Yeah, she was with some guy. They were pretty drunk, arguing about something. She dropped her phone on the back seat, said her name was Carmen." I thanked him, hung up, and stood in silence in the middle of the living room. The walls blurred. The air grew thinner. I didn't sleep that night. Carmen returned the next evening, radiant. Her lipstick was smudged, her heels scuffed, but her smile was polished. I didn't confront her, I watched instead, observed the way she deflected my questions, the way she deleted texts with practiced ease, the way she casually mentioned Robert over dinner, as if he had always been part of our lives again. "He's back in town," she said, sipping wine. "You should catch up with him, he always liked you." I stared at her, unblinking. "I thought you said he was toxic." Carmen chuckled. "Oh, come on, we were kids, people grow." But I knew better. Some people don't grow, they revert. And Carmen wasn't blooming, she was wilting in all the places love once held her together. One evening, I returned from work early. I had forgotten my laptop and came back after stepping out just 15 minutes before. The apartment was quiet, but the bedroom wasn't. Laughter. A man's voice. My stomach dropped. I didn't barge in, I didn't scream. I stood frozen by the hallway, listening to Carmen laugh in a tone I hadn't heard in months. Not with me, anyway. It was carefree, unguarded, and flirtatious. When I finally opened the door, she was alone, sitting on the edge of the bed, pretending to be focused on a book. I knew I wouldn't find him. I knew the exit route already. "You're early," she said without looking up. "Who were you talking to?" "No one." "Carmen." She finally glanced at me. "You know, Michael, this paranoia of yours, it's not attractive." That night, I cried in the bathroom, water running to mask the sound, and in the next room, Carmen watched Netflix, laughing loud enough to drown me out. It wasn't the affair that destroyed me, it was the realization that my pain meant nothing to her. The final straw came on a rainy Thursday. I cooked, cleaned, bought her a necklace she'd mentioned in passing. I was holding the box, standing in front of her, smiling like a fool. "I got you something." She looked at it, expression unreadable. "What's the occasion?" "Nothing, just, I wanted to." Carmen took the box, opened it and stared at the necklace, then she looked at me with eyes that could strip paint off a wall. You really think gifts will fix us? I blinked. No, I just thought. You thought what? That I'd forget how pathetic you looked crying last week? That this little silver chain, would make me fall back in love with you? Silence. I tried to speak, couldn't. You've become so emotional, Michael, so sensitive. It's embarrassing. That's when it happened. I felt something break. Not my heart, it had already been bleeding for months. It was an illusion, the fantasy, the lie I told myself every morning just to survive her apathy. It shattered. That same night, I left, no note, no drama, just silence. I moved into a rental with chipped tiles and too much echo. My friends offered to help me bounce back, but I didn't want to bounce. I wanted to unravel properly, to feel every inch of the wreckage before I rebuilt it. That's when Marie reached out. At first, it was casual. She sent me an email. I heard, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't reply for a week. When I finally did, we met at a quiet cafe tucked into a side street. She wore a soft green sweater and no makeup. Her hair was tied back in a loose no-tee, but her eyes, they were warm, not out of pity, but recognition. Did you know? I asked. Marie stirred her tea, then met my gaze. I suspected. Why didn't you say anything? Because she's my best friend, and you were her husband. I didn't know whose heart I'd be breaking. We sat in silence for a while, then she added, but I did wonder when you stopped smiling. That one sentence undid me, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple, observant, accurate. Marie didn't try to fix me, she didn't suggest revenge or rebound dates, she offered space, understanding. And then, the shift began. One evening, after a long walk through the park, she said something that I'll never forget. You were never too much, Michael, she was just too little for what you gave. And I believed her. Marie never called my tears weak, she never laughed at my heart. When I told her I still wake up at 3 a.m. remembering the sound of Carmen's laugh when I cried, she didn't flinch. She just held my hand. That was the moment I realized healing doesn't always start with love. Sometimes, it starts with someone simply not letting go. But as Marie and I grew closer, Carmen started texting again. First, it was subtle. Hope you're doing well. Then, more points. Remember that wine bar we used to love? Then, eventually, I miss you. I didn't respond. Until one evening, she sent me a picture. It was the old lemon tart I used to bake. Still can't make it like you did, she wrote. I stared at the screen for a long time, then I deleted the message. That weekend, Marie and I went hiking. She brought snacks, I brought a Polaroid. At the summit, she smiled into the sun, eyes closed, hair blown back by the wind. I took the photo. And I knew. This was the woman I wanted beside me at every new beginning. Not the one who laughed when I broke, but the one who helped me gather the pieces, then stayed to see how I'd rebuild. I had always believed that heartbreak came like thunder, loud, sudden, and final, but mine arrived in whispers, in the clink of Carmen's wineglass against marble, in the way she adjusted her hair while texting someone else, in the silence that stretched between us like an invisible chasm I kept falling into. After I left her, I expected peace, closure, maybe even relief. But what came instead was a gnawing emptiness. Every corner of my new apartment reminded me of what I had lost, or rather, what I had convinced myself was love. The first week without Carmen was quiet. Too quiet. The bed felt too big. Meals had no meaning. I still cooked as if she'd walk through the door, toss her bag on the couch, and ask, "What's for dinner?" But she never came, and I was left eating alone, her absence sitting across from me like a ghost I had invited in. Nights were worse. I'd lie awake, the ceiling fan spinning above like a question that had no answer. I'd stare at my phone, fighting the urge to scroll through our old photos. Most of them weren't even special, blurry selfies, birthday dinners, hotel mirrors. But the worst were the videos. Her laugh, my voice. The way she looked at me once, like I was the only man in the room. I began questioning everything. Has she ever truly loved me? Was I just a placeholder until Robert returned? Or worse, was I her experiment? A way to test if softness could hold a woman like her? I started second-guessing my own heart. Maybe I was too much, too emotional, too giving. Maybe men like me weren't meant to be husbands, just footnotes in someone else's love story. Marie tried to pull me out of that spiral. She'd show up with takeout, claiming she couldn't finish it alone. She'd suggest we walk through bookstores without buying anything, just browsing and talking about characters we wished were real. One night, we sat on a bench outside her apartment. I was quiet, heavier than usual. She finally asked, "When do you feel it most?" I looked at her, confused. "The pain," she clarified. "When does it hit hardest?" I swallowed. When I see someone smiling at a text. When a song I once played for Carmen comes on shuffle. When I pass the bakery where I used to wait an hour just to surprise her. Marie nodded slowly. "That's grief. Isn't grief for the dead?" She gave me a sad smile. "Sometimes love dies. We just don't hold funerals for it." That night, I cried again. But Marie didn't look away. She didn't shift uncomfortably or offer clichés. She placed her hand on mine and said, "Feel all of it, Michael. Don't skip steps. That's how we become hollow." In the days that followed, I tried to rebuild. I threw away Carmen's old mugs, replaced the couch, bought new bedsheets that didn't smell like her perfume, but no matter how hard I tried, the memories lingered, especially the ones she never knew she gave me, like the way she used to hum while putting on mascara, or how she'd always say goodnight without looking up from her phone, or how, even during our worst arguments, she never once said "I love you" unless I said it first. The pain wasn't just in what she did, it was in what I ignored, in the red flags I painted white, in loneliness I labeled it as space, in the moments I convinced myself her silence meant peace, not indifference. Marie saw all of it, and that terrified me. Because with her, I didn't need to pretend, I didn't need to perform. I could just be. And yet, I found myself holding back. Not because I didn't care, but because caring again meant risking everything I had barely pieced back together. One night, as we walked through the city, Marie turned to me. "You're still scared of her, aren't you?" I paused. Not of her, of becoming him again, the version of me that bent until he snapped. Marie stopped walking. She looked at me, really looked. "Michael, you're not broken. You were just loved poorly." I didn't know how to respond. Because part of me still believed I was hard to love. One afternoon, while going through old boxes, I found a letter I had written to Carmen on our second anniversary but never gave her. It started with, "You make me want to be better," and ended with, "Even when you don't say it, I feel your love." I laughed bitterly, because she never said it, and maybe I only imagined the feeling. I burned the letter in a metal tray on my balcony. Watched the edges curl and blacken. I watched the words disappear. And for the first time, I felt lighter. But healing wasn't linear. Sometimes, I'd see a couple kissing at a red light and wonder if I'd ever be that vulnerable again. Sometimes, Marie would laugh at something I said and I'd feel guilty, like I was betraying Carmen's memory by moving on. But other times, I'd see Marie dancing barefoot in my living room to a jazz record, and I'd realize, this was what it should have felt like all along. Gentle, mutual, safe. Still, I couldn't shake the suspense that Carmen wasn't done. And I was right. One night, I received a voicemail. Her voice, slurred and trembling. "I miss you, Michael. I was wrong, so wrong. Robert's gone again. He always goes, but you stayed. I don't know how to live with myself." I stared at the screen, and for a moment I felt everything at once, rage, pity, sadness, a dull ache in my chest, but I didn't call back. I showed Marie the message the next day. Her expression was unreadable. "She's spiraling," she said quietly. "I know." "What are you going to do?" I shrugged. "Let her." Because this time, I wasn't Carmen's safety net. I wasn't her rebound. I wasn't her backup. I was someone else's future. Still, at night, the weight of everything I endured pressed into me like a bruise that hadn't fully healed. There was always that suspense. What if Carmen didn't let go? What if she tried to ruin what I was building with Marie? But Marie, ever grounded, always reminded me, "Carmen may have been your storm, Michael, but I'm your shelter. Let her reign." And so, I did. And slowly, the storm faded into background noise. My scars didn't vanish, but they stopped bleeding. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt reborn. Just when I thought the ashes had settled, Carmen returned, not in voicemail form, not through desperate texts or half-drunken confessions. She came back with red lipstick, black heels, and an agenda. It happened on a Monday. The agency where I worked had recently expanded, and HR announced the onboarding of a new communications consultant. I didn't pay attention to the name at first, just skimmed the email like everyone else. It wasn't until I heard murmurs near the water cooler that my blood ran cold. "Isn't that Michael's ex?" someone whispered. I turned slowly. There she was. Carmen. Hair shorter now, styled into a polished bob, a tailored blazer in slate gray, not a single wrinkle in her clothing, but everything about her eyes told a different story, one of late-night regrets and rehearsed confidence. Our eyes met. For a split second, the whole world blurred, narrowed down to her stare. She didn't smile. She didn't smirk. She waited. I walked past her. Later that day, HR informed me she had passed every stage of the interview process fairly. She wasn't hired because of me. She had applied through the official channels. "She's a strong candidate," they said. "Smart, experienced, highly recommended." I believed it. Carmen had always known how to sell herself, to boards, to friends, to the world, but this time, I wasn't buying. I avoided her, changed floors when I could, ate lunch at different times, but Carmen was strategic. She started showing up where she didn't belong. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, leaning against the kitchen counter near the break room one afternoon. "Likewise." I meant what I said in the voicemail. I didn't answer. "You really won't talk to me?" Still silence. She took a step closer. "I'm not asking for anything." "Good." Carmen studied my face, as if trying to measure how far she had truly fallen in my world. She seemed smaller now, not physically, but emotionally, shrinking beneath her own guilt. "I didn't come here for drama," she said, lowering her voice. "I came here for closure." I laughed quietly. "You came to my office for closure?" She blinked. "You don't believe me?" "No." Carmen sighed. "Okay. I came here because seeing you with Marie made me realize how badly I messed up." There it was, the real reason, but before I could respond, the door opened. "Marie." She froze in the doorway. Her eyes darted between us. Carmen straightened up, tried to smile, but Marie wasn't looking at her. She was looking at me. "I didn't know you two were talking again," she said. "We're not," I replied instantly. Carmen opened her mouth, but Marie walked out without another word. I chased her down the hall. "Marie, wait." She didn't stop. I caught up outside. Rain had started to fall, light but persistent. "She showed up at the office," I said. "I didn't know. I didn't ask for it." Marie looked up, rain brushing across her lashes. "She always shows up, doesn't she?" "That's not fair." Marie exhaled slowly. "You're right. But it's not about her. It's about what she still is in your life. She's a shadow you keep turning toward, even when you don't mean to." I was quiet. Marie continued, softer now. "I know you've been through hell, Michael. I know you didn't choose this, but I can't be the woman standing in the hallway while you and your past share closed rooms." I stepped closer. "Marie, I love you. That hasn't changed. But your past still owns too much space inside you." Her words hit me harder than Carmen's betrayal ever did. Because Marie didn't scream, she didn't accuse, she just told the truth. And the truth was, she was right. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, replaying the scene over and over. Carmen showing up, Marie walking out, and me, caught between two women I had loved in different lifetimes, one with tears, one with silence. The next morning, Carmen was waiting by my desk. I didn't speak, I simply handed her a folded piece of paper. She opened it. Her eyes moved quickly, then slowly, her fingers trembled. "Michael," she whispered. The letter read, "Carmen, you were once my beginning, but you will never be my ending. Whatever remains between us isn't love, it's residue. I no longer cry over what we had. I mourn the man I was when I believed it meant something. Goodbye." She folded it back, quietly placed it on my desk, and walked away. That afternoon, Marie didn't answer my texts. I went to her apartment, no response. I stood outside in the rain again. When the door finally opened, she looked tired. "You wrote a letter?" she asked. "Yes?" "To her?" "To end it properly." Marie studied my face, searching for lies. And then, she stepped aside. "Let me in. I need to know something," she said, voice fragile. "Did you ever love me as a reaction to her?" "No," I said. "I loved you as the answer after her." Marie looked away, her eyes glassy. "That's a beautiful line." "It's not a line," I said. "It's a confession." Silence. Then she reached forward and touched my hand. "Then prove it. Not just to me, to yourself." I nodded. And I knew what had to happen next. The final goodbye wasn't said in an office, or over the phone. It was said at Carmen's farewell party. She had submitted her resignation a week later. Told HR she needed space, a break, a fresh start, somewhere new. The entire team gathered to say goodbye. I didn't plan to go. But Marie said something that changed my mind. "Closure isn't just walking away," she told me. "It's having the strength to face the thing and still choose to walk anyway." So I went. Carmen saw me, her eyes widened, but she didn't say anything at first. Later, while the others clinked glasses and gave toasts, she pulled me aside. "You came." I nodded. She hesitated. "I meant what I said. I really did love you once." I didn't argue. "I know. I just didn't know how to love someone who didn't make me chase." That, finally, made sense. "You liked running after things," I said. "I was already standing there." Carmen looked down. "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No, but I pity the version of you that thought laughter was a weapon against love." She looked away. "Goodbye, Carmen." She didn't stop me. Outside, Marie was waiting in the car. I got in, rain tapping on the windows like distant applause. Marie looked over. "You okay?" I reached for her hand. "Yeah, I am now." The confrontation didn't begin with shouting, it began with silence. 3 weeks had passed since Carmen left the office, but not a single week had gone by without a reminder of her shadow, someone forwarding an old email chain, an HR report with her name on it, or an intern mentioning her cool shoes. It was like the universe refused to let the past fade cleanly. But I had changed. I was with Marie now, fully, with no residue clinging to the corners of my mind. We laughed more, planned things. She had just moved in 2 nights ago, her books still stacked in unalphabetized chaos on my shelf. I had picked up her favorite coffee that morning and even texted her a reminder about the poetry reading she wanted to attend. I was healing. So when I opened the front door and saw Carmen sitting at my doorstep, knees tucked to her chest like a lost girl, I didn't feel panic. I felt tired. Her eyes lifted slowly, she looked small, smaller than I remembered. Her makeup was uneven, lips bitten raw, dark circles casting shadows under eyes that once sparkled with cunning. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I had nowhere else to go." I didn't move. "You have parents, a brother, an apartment in the city." "I sold it," she murmured. That surprised me. "Why?" "To run," she said, without shame. "But I ran in a circle. It led back here." I stepped aside, motioned to the hallway. "You have 5 minutes." She entered like she used to, but slower, like she was aware she no longer belonged here. The air between us shifted, no romance, no fire, just gravity pulling closed all doors left ajar. She sat, folded her hands, looked me in the eye. "I've been going to therapy." I raised an eyebrow. She nodded. "I know, too little, too late, but it helped. It made me realize I wasn't just cruel to you, I was cruel to myself. Every time I pushed away the softness, it was because I didn't believe I deserved it." I stayed quiet. "I laughed at your tears, Michael," she continued. "Not because they were weak, but because they made me feel guilty. Like I was watching someone love me the way I never could love anyone." She reached into her coat and handed me something. A notebook. My notebook. The one I had written in during our first year of marriage. Journals. Letters. Observations. I had lost it years ago. I kept it, she said, reading my confusion. I wasn't ready to let it go, not until now. I opened it slowly. My words stared back at me, raw, unpolished, aching. March 14th. She laughed when I forgot to dry clean, but I still made her soup when she caught a cold that night. April 7th. Carmen called me clingy for asking her to text me when she lands. Is it wrong to want to know she's safe? May 19th. I cried in the shower today. She didn't notice I skipped dinner. I closed the book. What do you want from me, Carmen? She hesitated. Closure, but not from you, from myself. She stood. I won't come back again, I promise. I just wanted to return something that belonged to you, before I let go of everything that never belonged to me. Before I could respond, she walked toward the door, paused, then turned back with eyes shimmering. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I treated you like a phase I'd grow out of. That will haunt me longer than you know. She left without asking for forgiveness. And that's when I realized. This was the real ending. Not the night I left, not the resignation, not the cold office hallway. This moment, when she didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't try to reclaim me, just finally let me go. And I felt free. But the night didn't end there. I returned inside to find Marie standing at the top of the stairs. She had heard everything. She didn't look angry, but her expression was unreadable. She gave you back your words, Marie said. I nodded. She said everything I once wished you'd hear. I didn't speak. Michael, she asked, would you have chosen me, if Carmen hadn't left first? The air shifted again. I walked up slowly. Yes, because Carmen didn't leave me. She broke me, and I chose you not to replace her, but to rebuild with someone who'd never laugh at the pieces. Marie didn't blink. I need you to know, I continued, that I love you with my whole heart, but that doesn't mean I don't carry scars, it means I carry them honestly, with you beside me. She inhaled deeply, chest rising and falling, then she reached for my hand. Okay, she whispered, but I need one promise. Anything. If you ever feel like you're still haunted by her, tell me. Don't protect me from the past, let me help walk you through it. I kissed her forehead. We already did. That weekend, Marie and I went to the mountains. We stayed in a wooden cabin surrounded by pine and silence. She painted on the porch while I read aloud from the same notebook Carmen returned, this time, not to mourn the past, but to understand how far I had come. And then came the unexpected message, a wedding invitation. Robert Langley. Carmen St. James. Marie's jaw tightened when she saw it. She's marrying him? I looked at the envelope again. No note, just the formal card and RSVP link. She wants something, Marie said. I shook my head. No, she wants me to see something. I didn't reply. I didn't RSVP. But 3 weeks later, I stood outside the very church where Carmen and I had once talked about getting married. Marie was by my side. We weren't attending. We were driving past. But I slowed down near the entrance, curiosity peaking. And then, for just a second, I saw her, Carmen in white, standing alone under the church archway, no bouquet, no groom, no guests in sight. And then she walked back inside. Marie looked over. Did we just witness a wedding? Or a lie? I smiled. Maybe both. And just as I started to pull away, Carmen stepped out again. This time with someone beside her. A woman. Not Robert. They were holding hands. Marie and I exchanged a look. Then she smiled. Guess she found herself after all. Maybe she finally stopped running, I said. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel betrayal. I felt nothing. And that nothing was everything. Marie leaned into me. You know what I love about this story? What? That she used to laugh at your tears. But you ended up rewriting the ending without needing revenge. I looked at her, this woman who had once been Carmen's shadow, now my center. No, I said softly. We rewrote it. That night, I took out a fresh notebook and wrote my first new entry in years. September 3rd. Marie fell asleep on the couch. Her pain, ting smudged on the edges. She looks peaceful, not perfect, and that's the difference. Carmen always wanted perfection. Marie wants peace. I finally understand the difference between being wanted and being chosen. 6 months later, Marie and I stood hand in hand at the launch event for her new art studio, Hollow to Whole, a name she chose, a name that spoke not just to canvas, but to our lives. She had painted every piece in the gallery. Some were bright, some chaotic, others soft and mournful, but at the center wall hung her most striking work, a woman sitting in a tub full of rainwater, mascara running down her cheeks, smiling with a cigarette in her hand. The title beneath it, The One Who Laughed. "She'll see it," Marie said quietly as the press cameras clicked behind us. I nodded. That's the point. Carmen had become a minor online celebrity since vanishing into digital silence after her resignation. She rebranded herself as a self-discovery coach, sharing filtered images of sunset yoga, minimalism, and faux empowerment quotes that conveniently excluded the trail of men she discarded along the way. But when Hollow to Whole went viral, her past caught up. The art community adored the show. One particular review spread like wildfire. "This piece, The One Who Laughed, speaks to the intimate violence of being mocked at your lowest and rising without needing to clap back, because your healing becomes the answer." Carmen commented anonymously under the article. We knew it was her, same grammatical tells, same punctuation style. Her message: some people profit off pain they were never brave enough to confront directly. Real women evolve. Marie never replied. I did. I published a letter on Hollow to Whole's website under the section, Letters That Were Never Mailed. "Dear Laugh, thank you for the night you mocked me. It taught me that not every love is honest, and not every home is safe. Thank you for showing the world your sharp teeth while I showed mine through silence. Thank you for proving that no matter how loud cruelty is, it cannot rewrite the truth. You were the lesson, but Marie, she is the life. I hope someday you learn the difference. Michael." Within 72 hours, Carmen deactivated all her socials. But this story doesn't end with her disappearance, it ends with our wedding. Not a grand affair, no designer gowns, no violin quartets, just a sun-drenched rooftop, 47 guests, and Marie in a white linen dress that moved with the wind like it belonged to the sky. As I read my vows, the city below us buzzed in its usual chaos, but we were still. "Marie," I said, voice steady, "you never asked me to forget what broke me, you just stayed while I rebuilt. You never told me to smile. You gave me a reason to." She wiped a tear, not the kind Carmen once laughed at, but one that said, "I see you, all of you." When it was her turn, she said only one sentence. "I used to wonder why she couldn't love you, but now I know, because she was never strong enough to love someone who never needed to be fixed." The guests clapped, but behind them, one figure didn't. She stood near the back, hair tied, sunglasses on. Carmen. I saw her before anyone else did. She didn't cause a scene, she didn't walk forward. She simply watched, eyes hidden, shoulders rigid, and when I kissed Marie, she turned and left. No words, no final appeal. That was the ultimate ending Carmen never expected, to be irrelevant in the very love story she thought she authored. We never spoke again, but weeks later, we received a package. Inside was the carved wooden notebook I once gave Carmen on our first anniversary, the one she never used. She had returned it, untouched, with a small note. "You were always more poet than placeholder. I just wasn't enough woman to deserve that story." Marie smiled as she read it. "She finally read the last page," she said. I nodded. And closed the book. Today, Marie and I have a quiet life. Art shows, travel, lazy mornings. Some nights I still remember the man I used to be, the one who cried on the kitchen floor while a woman laughed above him. But those memories don't hurt anymore. They remind me of how far I came, of what I survived, of the fact that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's evolution. And for Carmen? Her story became a background note in the masterpiece I now call my life. She mocked my tears. So I vowed my soul to the woman who cherished every one of them.